So we've got this great animation that we made, and now I want to show you what it takes to put it all together. I think you'll find that although it takes some work to make the pieces fit together the way you want them to, the idea is really simple and fun to play with, and I think you'll like making a great product for yourself to show what you know about your science. Let's look inside and see how to make it happen. So let's take a quick look at the two simplest things. That's the sun and the tree. If you look at their code, they're just sitting there. So when the flag is clicked, the sun shows. When the flag is clicked, the tree shows. Now, because things go in front of the tree, I move the tree back one layer. That keeps it in back of anything that might be traveling in front of it, like the photon that comes here and the molecules that come out of here. We don't want them to be hidden behind the tree, so we make them go back one layer. The other thing you can do, sometimes it's still a little picky and it won't automatically do that. You would choose go to front for whatever object, whatever sprite was traveling in front of the tree or the explosion that happens in front of the tree. So that's simple. But speaking of having to play with things, I want to talk about another issue that has come up for me while I was doing this and other Scratch programs. That's the X and Y coordinates. One of many things, excuse me, one of many things that can be a little buggy. If you notice over here, the coordinates that the CO2 molecule moves to, -74, -117 on the y-axis. But if we show where the CO2 molecule actually goes to, what you're going to see is that it goes to a different coordinate. So here it comes, and you'll see that it moves to a coordinate that's actually more like +87 and -28. And that's not what I have in there. So how is that? Well, it's because when I put in that coordinate right around there, what happened was it appeared way over here, and I could just barely see a little piece of it. So what I did was I adjusted my numbers until the sprite went to where I wanted it to go, even though it was incredibly different from the XY coordinate that you get here that guides it on the screen. I know it's confusing, but it's an example of the kind of thing you're going to run into where things don't work just how you want them to. Yet, if you just pay attention to the rules that are being followed by the system, then you can figure out a way to play with it until it does what you want. And that is the most important thing. So the best way for me to take you through what I did here is to start with the sprite that appears soonest after the sun in the tree. That's the photon sprite here. And what I've done is arrange the timing so that each sprite appears a certain number of seconds after the flag is clicked. There are actually simpler ways to program it, but I did it this way so that a beginning programmer would understand what I was doing. So I have the sprite wait 2 seconds. I have it set its size to 100%. I have it show up. These are all things in the looks category. And I have it go to front so that it'll pass in front of the tree when it's time to move. The next thing I do is I set its position at by the sun at 10 and -15, x and y. You'll notice, though, if you look at the screen, that actually the XY coordinates down here are very different. Once again, you have to play with it until the on-screen sprite does what you want it to do, instead of worrying about the X and Y don't quite match up exactly. Just play with it. I have it glide for 3 seconds to its spot over here where it's going to end, and then I have it hide. Now, it's 2 seconds plus 3 seconds, so I know that I can make the explosion appear at 5 seconds, and that'll be a nice, perfect transition. I have it in its own XY coordinates here, which, again, I had to play with. They don't even exactly match where the photon ended up in the last sprite, but, again, you have it show, make sure it goes to the front so it's not behind the tree, and then you have it hide. So that is the point at which the water molecule and the carbon dioxide molecule appear. You notice that I have them waiting 6 seconds because of the first thing takes 5 seconds, the explosion takes 1, and then I have the carbon dioxide molecule and the water molecule both appear after 6 seconds. each of them shows, they go to the front. There's a little amount of weighting that I had to play with to make it all come together at the same spot, at the same place, the way I wanted. I have them move, and when they get there, each of them has a little thing that they say, and that's still in looks, and they say a few words about what's happening for a few seconds, and then they hide. So here we are with the sugar now, and that looks very complicated, but really, if we take it apart bit by bit, you can see that this first part is just the same as all the other sprites. It waits a certain amount of time until it's time to go on stage. Then it shows up. One thing you will notice is that because there's multiple costumes that come in later, you want to make sure it starts on the right costume, costume number 1. And it starts in a place, it goes to a place, it says some stuff, and then I have it do this neat series of costume changes. I have it switch from one costume to another and go back and forth in a cycle that creates the illusion of motion, and also goes back and forth between this glucose molecule with the purple lines and with the yellow lines, and as we go through different cycles of it, it creates this really fun illusion of motion. And that's one of those things that I wanted to show you, because for me, I'd already done the work. I'd already made it do what I wanted it to do and say things, and I had the things that it was supposed to say. But then by playing with this, I made it more visually appealing. I made it more fun for myself. And I think I'm going to make it more engaging for the viewer who's going to be learning science from it. And so that's a win-win-win. And it just goes to show that once you get interested in doing something like this, it's all the little touches you can add that make it more satisfying for you and the viewer. Of course, the last thing that I do here is to make the sun appear again and say sugar is sunshine, just to make sure that we've driven that point home. And so what I do is I make another costume here, and I made it be the same sun that I picked as my sprite. You get the same choices when you try to pick new costumes. And then you can see here that what I do is I have it show up to a certain point, right about here, I think, and then I just have it going up the y-axis by 30. I wait a tenth of a second between each time I have it repeat 9 times, and then I have it say sugar is sunshine. And so that's the very end, just to make sure we've driven the point home, and just because I kind of was having fun doing it, and I wanted to do one more thing. And I hope that after you learn to make your science animations, that you will feel the same way.